manifestation of state power is their ability to determine where we're going to be at a given time or if we're going to be. That's the same thing that occurred in the Middle Passage. Genocide. What is genocide? Well, actually, it's, of course, the term that was devised to discourage white folks from killing other white folks. Right. However, some of us have begun to attempt to broaden that definition and to apply it in today's various vehicles. And in this instance, we talk about it in terms of the impact of white, you all say nationalist, I say supremacist state power in the world today. Genocide, as some of you may know, is considered the foremost international crime for which individuals and states, no matter their position, they say, may be indicted, tried, and punished by the International Criminal Court. Of course, we know when we look at it, only people of color, black men, in fact, at this point, have been indicted and tried under it. This crime involves in any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to the members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about as physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now, there's an extensive, and you can Google it, definition of all of these elements, as we say, and how they apply to our current situation. But I don't think that we need an extensive discussion to say that every one of them applies to the treatment of African people, not only in our day-to-day lives, but is intensified when we talk about the children, the women, and the men who are interned in concentration camps across this country. And while it is shameful, it's painful, when a brother gets locked down, when a sister gets locked down, it rends the fabric of our community. I know brothers like to think we're patriarchal, but we're matriarchal brothers. When you kick that stone out, take that sister out, you have kicked out the cornerstone. The children, if they're lucky, may get to go to their grandparents, to their grandmother, to be precise, much like the AIDS orphans in Africa. Depending on her age, her health, not to mention, since most African women in this country are poor, even those who are fortunate enough to receive Social Security, do not have the resources to adequately care for the children that they then must parent. So we have the children displaced, we have the elders at best inconvenienced, and we have the support system that was once available to the interned brother no longer available. So we have been set adrift again. That the benefits from that go to the telephone companies, go to the lawyers, go to the bondsmen, go to the private prisons. Dr. Mutulu Shakur, one of the more readily recognized names among the more than 100 political prisoners, prisoners of war, and exiles that came out of and continue to come out of our movement, often says, when we were snatched off the continent of Africa, thrown onto ships and brought here, we did the jobs. Now we are the jobs. I want to mention the stages of the imposition of genocide And I want to do that because I want us to be more sensitive and more responsive to what is going on around us generally, and especially as it relates to our youth and our participation in the dehumanization and alienation of our youth. The first thing is classification. Now, for people in California, you know about this campaign that Eric Holder is on, in fact, that he personally advanced, where young people can no longer go into their communities where their parents are, their grandparents are, their sisters and brothers are, on some kind of gang restraint order. We haven't said anything about that. And guess what? That's happening all over the country. It just happened that there was enough visibility as a result of Eric Holder's appearance in California that attention was drawn. A couple years ago, they began having teleconferences, national anti-gang teleconferences, where they invited all the lawyers and the prosecutors and the Department of Social Services people to attend these meetings, where we were all supposed to get together and collude on how we were going to reduce these kids to fodder for the private prisons. And of course, we've all heard about the Kids for Change in Pennsylvania, right, where the judge got a kickback for all of the kids that he sent off to his friend's private prison. And so when the question and answer period came, and I raised questions about, well, wait a minute, we're talking about 14-year-olds that are going to be sentenced to life without possibility of parole. This was before the U.S. Supreme Court was so embarrassed by the rest of the world into saying that there's some question about whether or not a 14-year-old who can't even sign a contract ought to be sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. That cops can go and talk to a kid without parents being present, without a lawyer being present, and that's going to determine the course of his or her life. Needless to say, I wasn't invited back to any more meetings. Classification. Situations where whole cities, are putting together lists of young people who may still be able to go to their neighborhoods, go back to their neighborhoods, go to their school, but if they are stopped, they get their name comes up on this list, and they're automatically presumed to be guilty of whatever, kind of like Oscar Grant was expected to be guilty of something just by virtue of the fact that he was young and black and on the BART, right? Symbolization. They talk about it as that the young people have their colors, but the government has its colors, and it's black and it's brown. And whatever else that they may have, other color they may have, doesn't really matter, because the overriding color is the one that the government has imposed on them. Symbolization. Dehumanization. If it's gang-related, it doesn't matter what they do to them, right? If it's drug-related, it doesn't matter what they do to them. If it's black-on-black crime, it doesn't matter what is done to them, whether it's in the streets or in the courts or in the prisons. Dehumanization. Organization. Officials, sympathetic and sympathetic in-group leaders and intellectuals organized to repress and murder out-groups. Well, shooting a kid down in the street or in their house, an old woman, because you went to the wrong house, that's the in-group shooting down the out-group, and it happens with too much frequency. You know, we still got Eleanor bumpers, and nobody's been prosecuted for that. Polarization, us against them. Preparation, and I don't know about any place else, but I know in little old Greenville, which is called a medium city, they drive around in war wagons. I mean, they put on them, what do you call them, you know what I'm talking about, bulletproof vests. They wear them all the time. They have shotguns, they have computers. All they need is the word, and they are ready to take out a whole block. Helicopters. Greenville, South Carolina has helicopters. Genocide. For whatever motive, the final decision is made to attack and destroy those in the outgroup or to destroy the group as such. It may be justified as a righteous campaign to exterminate, quote-unquote, vermin, to cleanse the society of the filth, to recover ancient greatness, save the nation's race, to revenge past wrongs, or to make us safe against terrorism. So, the question is a bit larger than just the notion of who gets locked up in what warehouse, as the brothers call it. It's about how all of us are at risk and how all of us are locked down and how we address that issue as we address the larger issue. When sitting down, I want to call attention to the fact that not only are black women the fastest growing segment of the prison population, but that it is growing at an average rate. The number of African women being interned on an annual basis is 11%.
I want to thank Sister Ngazi for that presentation. I want to bring your attention to this resolution. Everybody got resolutions in their packet, and there is a resolution in your packet, in your registration packet, resolution number 10-04, and it's the resolution to the Congress on the mass incarceration of African people. You need to really check that out. Talked a lot about the things that Sister Ngazi raised. I want to call up Comrade Omawale K. Fing. He's going to talk some about the Free Diop campaign, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, I want to talk just a little bit more about the Free Diop campaign. It's still implanted in my brains from more than 30 years ago. We had a flyer, and on that flyer, I can remember the first sentence. It says, prisons are not nice, but they are real. And I remember that because every day in the summer heat in St. Petersburg, Florida, we were going out from door to door with this flyer, right, Brian? Trying to build the African National Prison Organization, because, we had recognized the relationship that African people have to prison in this country. Just let me read briefly I'm going to read point 6 of what we want, what we believe, a 14-point platform of the African People's Socialist Party. This was what we were saying in 1979. It says, we want the immediate and unconditional release of all black people who are presently locked down in U.S. prisons. We believe that all African men and women who are locked down in the U.S. concentration camps, commonly known as prisons, are there due to decisions, laws, and circumstances which were created by alien and foreigners for their own benefit and as a means of genocidal, colonialist control. We believe that these decisions, laws, and circumstances were created and are enforced without our consent and are therefore illegitimate. We believe that the African men and women who are locked down in these concentration camps are victims of the U.S. colonialists ruling class justice which maintains our enslavement and terrorizes our people, and that they should therefore be released immediately